Hello, founders and investors. Thank you for tuning in to Next Round Ready. I'm your host, Chris. Today, we got very, very special guests, and I'm not saying that lightly. You see this guy all over TikTok, all over LinkedIn, making a ton of content to help founders. Steve Walsh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate you, man.
So, before we get too deep into anything for founders, anything for investors, anything like that, I'd like to just start off with what got you into this space? Like, when did you know you were an entrepreneur?
I think, like most good things, sometimes things just happen at the right time in your life. And for me, it was about 9 years ago. I had spent most of my life in corporate life. I like to call it building billion-dollar companies and dreams for others, and been involved in two very successful enterprises. And I decided, and I was a big public market investor. And about 9 years ago, I started to lean into alternative assets. And one of those alternative assets was startups because I knew how to grow businesses, invest in businesses, build businesses. And I'm like, why don't I just go help the next generation of entrepreneur do all those things with my massive network I had built? And I also got tired of building someone else's dream. So I sort of took a package and I'm like, I wasn't going to retire and drive my wife nuts. I'm like, well, what's next? I'm like, well, what's next is I'm going to go help these founders. What started as like I'm going to invest and just help some founders, like we were talking about earlier, turned into the fact that founders realized pretty quickly that my network and the size of my network and the scale of my network, because I'm a little bit more mature in my career, had value. And it had tremendous value to them because what I found is every time they would ask me a question, I would say, give me a minute. And I'd be like, okay, here's 3 introductions I'm making. And I would start making introductions. Those introductions started helping them sometimes raise capital. Sometimes it would help them get their next banking relationship, legal relationship, all the things they needed to make their business run faster. And a couple of founders were like, you're really good at this. And I'm like, what am I really good at? They're like, well, we give you like a business problem and you just bring an army of resources to solve it. They're like, you should come work with us. And I'm like, I don't want to work for anybody anymore. I sort of had that part of my life. I just want to be like this lone wolf that does stuff. They're like, no, like I don't call it a consultant. I don't care, but we need you on our team doing this. And Chris, I literally thought they were kidding. I'm like, I'm sorry, what the hell am I doing? They're like, you're like this biz dev guy that just has this army of resources that we want access to, and we're willing to have you on our team on like a fractional basis to do that. I'm like, that's a job, and I didn't know that. And I didn't want to do it in a way that I saw a lot of other people in the startup industry doing, which was, taking advantage of founders, asking for things like board seats, asking for founder shares, like nefarious, I would call it nefarious terms, taking huge high retainers. I'm like, all right, why don't we do this? Keep your board seat. I don't want your founder shares. I don't want equity. If I want to come into your round, I'll come in like everybody else. And what would you pay an intern? How about let's do that, and I'll do it for like 2 or 3 you at a time. So no one's paying me a ton of money, but it's also not charity work. Like, we're aligned. I'm just going to help you. Yeah. I'll do it for very low cost. I won't take equity. And if I want to invest, I'll just come in with everybody else. And they were like, we have 2 friends that have companies. Can you help them too? And that's really how it started. So my company, Hands on Angel, started with me just making investments in startups and asking them how I could help. And they came to me saying, we want more of this. Can you just do more of this for us? And I'm like, I didn't know what that was. They told me what that was, and that's how the whole thing started. And that's how I became an entrepreneur. It was completely by accident, and it was the founders that asked me to do something for them. It wasn't me saying, I have a company, you should use me. It was them saying, we see what you're doing, and you should have a company because we want that. I'm like, okay, that was it.
That's such a unique position to be in when the company is kind of built for you. I think it's best when the problem kind of finds you versus you searching for a problem. I think a lot of founders go out there searching for the biggest problem they can solve, which is how you start a startup, yes. But I also think you can kind of drive yourself crazy if you just sit there thinking about the biggest problem you can solve. I think it's better to find your skill set, like what you're really good at, and then tie the problem solving to that, because then it's more natural to you. And it's a weird thing where the universe just kind of works in your favor. God works in your favor, where things
Yeah.
just kind of align over time, and you don't have to really try as hard. It just works itself out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Chris, it sort of came from the first principle, which was do no harm. Like, I didn't want to harm anybody. I wanted to, everything I brought, I wanted to be additive and help. And if you look even at my content today, everything I'm trying to do is just how do I help founders go faster, raise faster, get revenue faster, get profitable faster. That's it. And if you go from that principle of do no harm and try to be as helpful as you can, I am living proof that good things happen. What I will argue is it takes time. Like the first year or two doing this, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have any clients because I just hadn't figured it out yet. And I didn't have that aha moment when the founders were like, no, you need just to keep doing this. And now I'm 9 years in, and it's been tremendously fortunate for what I get to do today. But it just takes time. Not everybody wants to play the long game. Not everybody wants to give first and figure out how to make money later and monetize later. I sort of gave for a couple years before I ever figured it out. And I think that was probably the most important part of my journey, which is give more than you get. Don't understand when it's going to happen, but it will happen, and people will figure out a way to repay you for the generosity you've given them. I think that's a good way to be in life, never mind just business.
And so, with your experience, what are the sectors that you think are going to do really well in 2026? Because we know founders are always looking for a big idea. They're always looking for a new product. Obviously AI, but what else do you think is really going to blow up in the next 12 months?
I don't think anybody knows. I think I think the cat's out of the bag on AI, and AI will be part of it. I think what you're going to see, Chris, whether it's some of it will be AI, some of it won't be. What I'm really interested in, like, and you probably see this a lot, I get 10 word tax GPT for legal or accounting in my inbox every week. 10 of them. Like, no one has a novel concept. What I really like are the people that are saying, here's a really old, archaic industry. It's boring. It has no tech or limited tech, and AI can help us transform this industry. I'm looking at a lot of that. I'm looking for someone that says, here's an industry nobody is paying attention to because it's boring, it's not sexy, it's not on CNBC, and we can apply AI to this or an AI application to this and do it better and faster than we've ever done it. Whether that's, and I've seen ones like pool cleaning, plumbing services, things that you're like, laundry. Seriously?
I interviewed the founder, Sam Sterling. She's doing some kind of service with laundry and stuff. It's like, you would never think of that, but that's kind of the genius of it, honestly.
It is. And I just think that those are the founders that are really intriguing to me. Someone that takes this old, archaic, boring industry and says, I'm going to apply tech to this and you'll be able to have 10x the capacity. I really like those. So I don't know if it's going to be AI versus fintech. I think it's going to be people leveraging tech to bring these older industries forward because they have to or they're going to die.
I think that's the big thing for me in the AI space is the evolution of it. If you can get, like, I think our government needs to be updated with AI and stuff just to make processes a lot easier. Like,
wouldn't it be great?
Oh my goodness. Going to the DMV, getting a new ID or something, it shouldn't take as long as it takes. It's ridiculous. With all the technology we have, it should be done within minutes, honestly. It shouldn't take months. I ordered a new ID like 6 months ago. I still have not gotten it.
True story. My son relocated from California a month and a half ago. He had lost his title and applied for a replacement title before he moved here. They've sent the title to the wrong address, so it got lost in the post office. The next time they didn't send him his title, they sent him his registration, which he already has, or he wouldn't be able to drive the car. He's now in his third attempt, and it's taken a month and a half. It's brutal. And just think of how technology could fix this.
That's where I think we need to put more of our focus in, like, making those really annoying tasks that we have to deal with every day. Like Apple's recent one with the call hold feature. When you're on hold, you don't have to sit on hold. Your phone will just notify you. That's like a good technological update.
Is that part of the latest release?
Yeah, that's part of the latest update.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, now with like spam calls, if it's spam, they have to like tell you if they're not saved in your contacts after this, they get screened, so like technology is moving forward, but I still think we have a long way to go to just make everyday life a lot easier and more convenient. Like I think when people hear AI, they automatically think of like robots and the Terminator and stuff. I don't think we're anywhere near close to that. We're going to get to a point where the bigger, wealthier people might have robots and stuff, but even those won't be good. Like we won't have thousands of them running around neighborhoods. I don't think we're close to that yet.
Totally agreed.
And so what specific early signals do you really lean towards when you are working with a startup or you want to invest in a startup? What are some of the green flags you see early on?
At the stage that I work at, which is predominantly that pre-seed stage, sort of the post-product, post revenue, but they're not doing over $1 million or $2 million a year in revenue. They're doing, 10,000 a month to maybe 50,000 a month. That sweet spot. It's really about the founder. So the signaling, the green lights for me are someone that can get from 0 to 1 with very little or no capital. Someone that can bootstrap, maybe do a friends and family round, can code it themselves, or even use one of the no code or low code Lovable, for example, and get to an MVP without raising any money. And more importantly, Chris, I love people that are like, Steve, we cobbled together this really crappy version of Rev 1 and we showed it to 100 businesses, and amazingly, 20 of them said they'd buy it. And then the next month, 30 more were interested. And we're 90 days in, and we've got 20 customers in our first 5,000 a month in revenue, and our pipeline's doing this, and it's growing double digits month over month. And if we just had some capital, we could take it from 5 or 10,000 a month in revenue to 50,000 a month in the next 90 days. That's when I want to meet them, and that's the signaling. They can do a lot with a little. They don't need to raise a lot of capital. They can be very resourceful, Chris, in how they go to market. And this is a big one for me. They're not afraid of talking to customers. All too often, founders get in this vacuum and they build what they think everybody's going to want. And then I'm the jerk that comes along and says, Chris, before you launched that product, how many user interviews did you do? What? How many potential customers did you talk to? Well, none. We didn't have a product yet. I go, you needed a product to talk to a potential customer about what you were going to build? You couldn't just literally build a type form and ask them 5 questions about this problem that you claim they have, that you have to build this product for? No, a lot of founders don't do that. I look for that too. I like for a founder that says, when I say things like, Chris, what makes you think this was such a big problem? Oh, Steve, before we built a line of code, we interviewed 100 companies in what we think is our ICP, and here's the data of what we found. And here's what they'd be willing to pay. Here's what it's costing them in their business. Here's the impact that having this solution would provide. Like, they actually knew that this, you said it earlier, they knew it was a true problem, not a nuisance, a true problem. So I'm looking for founders that can do a lot with a little, founders that can get to market with very little capital, founders that talk to customers to validate the problem before they ever build something. And the last green signal for me, Chris, is I look for founders that have had some sort of different path. And that path could be perseverance. Maybe something went really wrong in their life. Maybe they came from a broken home. Maybe they put themselves through college. Maybe they're an immigrant. I don't know. Maybe they're recovering from something that tells me that if they could handle that, being a founder is going to be a breeze, because being a founder is an everyday, Jerry Maguire, right? Up at dawn, pride swallowing siege. It just is. So if they've handled adversity before in their life, I think they're very well conditioned to be a founder. Those are sort of the 4 things that I look for that are a green light for me. I hope that's helpful.
I think it is, because most founders are terrified of that 100 customer conversation. And my strategy, I tell founders, is make content. That's kind of the answer. Literally make content. Sit down, start a podcast about whatever it is, and that's going to make it easier for you to get the customers on the show. Now, part of your content is literally just asking them everything for your product. It's that easy. It's a really simple formula that I myself execute. And it's funny because I know founders aren't going to really listen to it until it's 5 years from now. That's what you were doing. Then they'll get it. But I think it's that easy. I've also done bigger product promotions or just product reviews, customer calls within groups, Facebook groups. They are amazing for this. If you can connect with the group owner and then say, look, I got this new product I'm launching. I can pay you, or I can let you use it for free. Let's work something out. If I can do a webinar in the community. This was my first product I ever built. I made it on Bubble, no code too.
No code, man. Just hello.
I did a webinar in a group and 83 people showed up and 33 people bought. For me just doing a 25-minute webinar. And I was shocked. I'm like, I didn't think anybody was going to buy it. I didn't know. This was my first time. And it worked very well. So that's a tried and true strategy of talking to 100 people. You're going to get so much data information. So I love those as green flags. Now, what are some of the red flags that just immediately tell you I can't invest in this founder? This is a no?
So for me, red flags for me, like when I know this isn't going to be a fit, I will preface this by saying I'm not the smartest guy in the world. There are people out there a lot smarter than me. Having said that, I don't need a founder to point out my flaws. So if all they want to do for the conversation is tell me how smart they are and how dumb I am, this is not going to be a fit. I don't know everything about everything, but I've done real well in life. Backs almost 70 companies. I've raised $1.3 billion for those companies, and I've had 9 exits. And I've talked to over 6,000 founders in the last 9 years. I don't know everything about everything, but with 9 exits and $1 billion raised, Chris, I know my mother would say a little something about something.
Yeah.
Please don't tell me I'm an idiot and spend the time because that's just not going to be a fit for me. If you're the smartest person in the world and you don't need me, what the hell are we talking for? By the way, you called me for money. So why are we talking? That's a red flag for me right off the bat. And I know people and founders that are the smartest people in the world and they're the most humble and nicest people. So red flag for me is that. That's one. 2 is, I'll ask this question to founders all the time. Tell me a really hard experience you've had in your life and what you learned from it and how you recovered. If they're like, can't think of one. Really? You've never failed? Like,
Right?
Chris, it's 3:20 in the afternoon. I failed 3 times today.
Today.
Like once
right?
in the gym, once on the ride home. Like I can give you like 5 examples of how I failed today. If I ask that question to someone and like, oh, I've never failed in anything, I'm like, okay, they're completely full of shit. So that's another one. And the last one is humility. Like when you're a founder, being a founder is a humbling experience because you're beholden to everyone else. You're beholden to your customers. You're beholden to the people you ask to help you on this journey, your co-founders and your employees. You're beholden to your investors because you're trying to return the investment on the capital they gave you because you took their money. You have to have some humility. And I really look for founders that have that. They don't have to just be the smartest people in the room. Sometimes they have to be the most humble and understand that it's never about themselves. It's about what they're building. It's about the company, the entity, their employees, their customers. I say it all the time with what I do. It's never about me. It's about my founders and helping them do better things because when they win, I win. And I look for that. Those are probably the 3 things that are red flags for me.
Yeah, I think the ego thing is a big thing I see from some founders or sometimes the developers who want to be founders. I
Yeah,
see in a lot of their social content where they're almost like talking down to their audience or their followers
right,
of
right.
like, I know this, I've built this thing, I worked at Meta or Netflix or whatever it is. And the ego they walk around with, even at some events, I run into some of these people and it's kind of like, it's off putting. And I don't think that they always know it's off putting. I don't know if they realize it. Like,
They're obtuse. They're obtuse that like they don't realize. I'm like, how do you not realize how off-putting that is? Like when you walk around telling everybody your degrees or like I don't ever want to go flex my bank account. Like that's not a good look for me. I don't want to do that. I want people to know me for me and what the value I can bring to them and hopefully how knowing me and what I do will bring value to their company and ultimately their life. That's really what I want.
so when it's 50-50 for you, like you're borderline on if you want to work with a founder or not, what
Sure.
tips you to the yes to invest?
So I have a really interesting process and it goes back to the I'm not the smartest person in the world statement. I don't do anything alone. I have been beyond fortunate in my 9 years of doing this that I've got a network of probably almost 1,000 now investors that I've co-invested with. We've come into similar deals. And it depends upon the deal, SaaS versus fintech versus AI. But I've got a database that's segmented by segment, type, stage, etc. Anytime I do an investment, I never do an investment if I'm the only one investing. What I say to a founder is, whatever my check size is, 10K, 20K, doesn't matter, 50K, I'm not putting any money in if I can't go find a half a dozen friends to come in this round with me who are going to be smarter than me, have more investments than me, and know the space better than me. Because what it does, Chris, I need to protect myself from myself. Because if it was up to me, man, I'd fall in love with every founder because they work so hard and they're such good people. And I'm like, oh my God, your story's amazing. Let me write a check. I'll go, but before I do that, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to my friend Chris because he knows this SaaS AI space better than me. And Chris writes checks that are bigger than me. So if I can get Chris to come in, instead of us raising 50, 100K, what if I could get 5 of my friends to come in and we raise $500,000 or $1 million? And then you'll get 5 or 6 of us on the cap table. We'll multiply the investment. You'll get more help. And I'll make sure I don't make a really bad decision. So I do all of my investments that way. So when I'm on the fence and at every one of my investments, I take to my network. And if I can't find some sort of a group of consensus anywhere, I probably have no business investing in that founder. And it's helped me make better decisions. And I would say my 9 exits are directly tied to the fact that I didn't make those decisions in a vacuum.
Wow, that speaks to community, man, of like having people that you can trust that are reliable, that are smart, knowledgeable, experienced, skilled, of having a real community. That's genius. I love that.
You know what it is, Chris? You know, someone once said, it wasn't my phrase, your network is your net worth. Never more true than today. The benefit for me, whether it's helping a founder find a resource or helping me validate an investment, I put hours a week into my network. I probably say if I work 60, 70 hours a week, I would say 40 to 50% of that time is spent doing this, talking with other people in the startup ecosystem that could help a founder of mine, whether bringing them on as a guest in your podcast, maybe them buying your product that you're building for the early stage founder community. How can I make this relationship with Chris not just be about me and Chris? How can I make it become 1 + 1 = 3? Because I'd like you and I to figure out a way to help one of my founders someday. I'm always thinking about that, and I make time for that every single week. So my community and my network, the most valuable thing I will ever give a founder, it's not my money, it's access to my network, which is global and massive and filled with people like yourself.
I appreciate that because I think when I talk to investors, I think that's the main difference for me between a angel investor and a venture capitalist is a lot of the angel investors are usually more open to sharing that network and that Rolodex and that contact list, and they kind of want to set you up for that success. Whereas a lot of the VCs, not necessarily a bad thing, they just focus on the outcome, the result, and trying to raise their next round, versus trying to help the founder effectively be a successful founder.
You know what it is? For me, Chris, it's the angel network tends to be, to your point, more open, less guarded, because we know we're not going to be the only investor because our check's not big enough. So we need a bunch of us to come in to really have true impact. Where if you're a $300 million VC fund, you're like, well, we could take the whole round. We don't need anybody else. And it's a very closed-minded, at times, closed-minded approach. And it's always about, well, we could bring other people in, but before we do, let's decide if we're going to make an investment, and then we'll choose who we introduce you to. Don't ask us for introductions. We'll decide who we introduce you to, versus what I'll say to a founder is, where do you need help? What areas do you need help? And let me see what areas of my network I have resources in that area, and let me make introductions. Like I don't gatekeep it to them. I just say, I don't gatekeep, man, because I think of it this way, Chris. If I'm investing in your company, I have a fiduciary responsibility to myself, to my family, and more importantly to you, to make you wildly successful. Why the hell would I ever want to limit access to my network for you?
Right.
Wouldn't I want to make it as open as possible so you can go as far as possible so I can get an exit and actually have a chance at getting my money back? Like, shouldn't we be aligned on that? And I'm like, anyone that says, well, I don't give founders access to my whole network, I'm like, why? Isn't that why you made the investment in them in the first place, to help them? I don't get that.
Listen, I 100% agree. I asked another investor that same question, and they were like, well, it was a long explanation about them having some kind of fear that the founder would want to go somewhere else or something like that. And I was like, but you've already invested. So I don't get it sometimes. I don't understand.
I'm with you, man. I don't get it at all. I think it's a closed-minded approach, and I think here's what happens, Chris. When you have a closed-minded approach like that, you miss opportunity. Because what's going to happen, if you take that approach with me, when I have an awesome deal and an awesome founder, you know who I'm not calling? You. You know what I mean? Yeah. You don't want that. You want me to think of, oh, I got an amazing deal. I'm calling my friend Chris because he always treats founders with respect and is helpful as possible. Like we did an event last week at LA Tech Week for founders. It was 400 founders called the Pitch Lift. I had investors come in from Chicago, Calgary, Alberta, Boston, Miami, all friends of mine, all in my network. One of them I've done 23 deals with. And I was like, look, man, he came from another country. I'm like, thank you so much for coming. He's like, we've done 23 deals together. You always send me your best founders. When you ask, I show up. And I'm like, my life doesn't suck when I have people like that in my network. It just doesn't.
Yeah, you're gonna win for sure. So run
That's
up
it,
on
man.
time here, but I gotta ask you this last question. If a
Yes, sir.
founder's gonna pitch you, what's one thing that they just have to know? Like I'm gonna pitch Steve, and I gotta know this thing to get it right.
I think please don't know your number. Please don't have me know your numbers better than you know them. So, like, if you send me a deck and we're talking about growth or profitability, and I ask very basic questions, I'll give an example. I was with a founder last week that wanted to meet with me, and I asked a pretty basic question. By the way, 2-person team. It wasn't like they had 100 people. And I'm like, what are you going to do in revenue this year? He's like, what do you mean? I said, it's October. We're 10 months in. You know what you did the last 10 months. Take what you did the last 10 months, take an average, multiply times 2, add it to 10 months. That gets you a year. What are you going to do in revenue? I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I'm like, okay. I go, what'd you do last month in revenue? He's like, well, I'd have to take a look. I'm like, hold on. I can tell you who owes me lunch money from the 3rd grade. Like, I can tell you for my business, and I'm a services business like you, Chris. I have a P&L that shows the last 5 years of my business by month, and I can go in seconds to it and go, here's exactly what we did in June of 2023. Like, you have to know your numbers. And especially if you're asking an investor for money. Then I asked a follow-up question. I go, what are you burning? He goes, as in, I go, revenue, less cost, what's your net burn? At the end of the month, are you losing money, making money? Do you break even? What does it look like? He's like, well, it depends. I go, depends on what? And we just struggled to answer it. And I said to him, I try to give it in a kind, candor way. Do not talk to investors if you don't know your numbers. It's insulting. You're asking people for money, and I ask you a basic question like, I didn't ask you to split the atom. I asked you, what are you going to do in revenue? What's your burn? And you're like, I got to get back to you. I'm like, well, guess what? When you ask me, can you invest? I'm going to say, I got to get back to you.
Yeah, as a founder, you gotta. I don't think study the Stripe account every day, but you should know those
No,
numbers
just
easily.
basics. What are you
Basics.
going to do this year? Ballpark it. If you're off by 20 grand, it's fine. But you're going to do 300,000 or 300 million. Do you have an idea?
Gotta know the basics. All right, founders, you heard it, man. You gotta know the basics if you want to invest with Steve. I would say that's for any investors, but it seems like that's a pet peeve for Steve.
A little bit. Just a little bit, yeah.
Oh man, this was great, man. Steve, thank you so much for being here, being a guest on the show. This was absolutely incredible. Where can founders find you?
Pretty simple. My website is handsonangel.com or any of my socials, whether it's TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram. Look up Hands on Angel and you'll see my gray haired face.
Guys, if you're listening, thank you for tuning in. I will see you next time.